Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that lives up on top of that hill, Mr. Karl Bryan.
Hey,
sir.
Yo ho ho, road dog. How goes it, my brother?
You know, it's going pretty good, I gotta say. Things are humming and as per usual. How about yourself?
You bet, bud. Busy, huge week. We record these bad boys on a Monday. You might be listening to this on a different day, but record these things on a Monday. And the calendar is full and the to-do list is jam-packed. So looking forward to it, bud, and looking forward to this call.
Beauty. Well, I hope you got your best dress on because I got a couple of good questions here for you this morning. A little bit of an inside joke. If you've been listening for some time, there's the backstory there. We're not going to touch that this morning, Karl. I don't even want you to go there. We've got a couple of questions here that have been queued up for some time. For those new to the podcast, Karl likes to visit certain rabbit holes from time to time, and they take him some time to get there. So first question up. Let's get right to it here. This is interesting. So this is a female business coach. And she says, I'm female and wondering if I should target only women. What has been your experience here? Well, Karl, like I said, this could go in many different directions. We could have a lot of fun. But on a serious note, what are your thoughts in terms of maybe flipping the coin as well? Men only going after men, women only targeting women. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's you know what, that's a good question. I like again, when you're asking these, the better questions you ask, I think the more deep we can go with these Q&A on our podcast. So I like it. Often find women, they're like women only this, women only that, which is totally fine. And it's, you're defining your niche at a higher level. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I can tell you, and I think this might be why you're asking the question, if you understand polarity, masculine, feminine energy, there can be a lot of magic that can happen there. And I personally have found, I'm just, I'm like an alpha male. It's the masculine guy, right? Like, this is the way it is. Good, bad, indifferent. That's just the way it is. So I have found, I have had some home run clients over the years with feminine women, right? So a very feminine woman, and then I'm the masculine man, when we're kind of chatting and we're coming from very, polar opposites, again, understanding polarity. Something you might want to have a look at. If you haven't read, there's a book called The Game by Neil Strauss. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Again, and it's about, picking up girls and this sort of thing, which you might find that kind of cheesy. But really, if you read the book and you see it from a very different vantage point where, what could you learn out of this? And really, at the end of the day, a guy going to a bar and picking up a girl is nothing more and nothing less than a sale. And that book, some of the magic dropped in there. And again, just don't look at the exact tactical step, but look a little bit deeper than the tactical step, which, by the way, he guides you. And when you read the book, that's kind of laid out for you. Very powerful. But what are we saying? I would hesitate, if I was a woman, to go to, women's only. I would think of considering going to the masculine man and the very successful alpha male. And I think that you could have a lot of success there. And the same goes, by the way, for the guys. Again, going to a woman business owner, especially nowadays, there are more successful women business owners than ever. Debatably, again, that these larger companies and whatnot, and they're interviewing folks that, I think a woman used to be like, you'd be up against it, like you'd be at a disadvantage when applying for the job. I don't know that it's gone the other direction, but it most certainly doesn't harm me anymore. Some of the successful women who are running companies blow your mind. So bottom line, I would hesitate to do that. And I think that masculine man, feminine woman can have an unbelievable coaching relationship. So to go women only, I think you'd be eliminating that from your from your coaching practice. Wouldn't advise it. And I will say this though, and this is something that I have seen where feminine women that become like a woman is her most powerful in her feminine energy. And I'm not pretending to be the expert, by the way. There's guys that leave me for dead on this, but I have studied the subject of polarity. Tony Robbins has a power talk from back in the day that, in my opinion, is an hour and a half of the most powerful, audio recording that I've heard in a long time on this exact subject. Like when my wife and I, we have like friends that are going through a little bit, marriage troubles or something, considering a separation and yada, going to, the marriage counselor. We send them that audio. We send it to them, and it's sailed through, 20 of our friends. Very, very powerful. What am I getting at? A woman in her feminine energy has the most power. You probably know what I'm talking about here. When a woman kind of becomes more masculine, I'm not talking about lesbian and gay, none of that stuff, right? What I'm just describing here is a woman in her feminine energy has got 10 times more power than a woman using masculine energy. And I think you've seen that. If you ever met a woman who's been in an abusive relationship for a long time, especially a series of them, or in some cases it's through family members and that sort of stuff, you'll find that they build this shell, this masculine shell on the outside. And when you talk to them, you get a little bit of a masculine vibe. That is a woman outside of her power big time, and isn't going to be as successful as what she otherwise could with pretty decent predictability. I'm not speaking of rabbit holes. I might have just gone down one road, dog. But the bottom line is, I don't know that if I'm a woman, I wouldn't necessarily be going directly to women. No, if from a place of common sense, right? I would push back on that big time and say that you could have more success, a lot more success with a masculine man. So, and the same goes for the men. So, Road Dog, that's going to be my answer on that one. But
And the beauty is all the audio, if I was a woman, all this, we could chop this up and really have a lot of fun with this. So, oh man, I gotta consider this when I'm picking out questions here in terms of what do I want to ask.
I know. Please do, man. Please do. All right, let's keep going.
It is something special. Okay. Next, man, it's there's just the flashing lights in my head go down. I could totally throw Karl under the bus. No, focused attention right now only.
There you go.
All right. I'm trying to get an accountant and a local advertising company to promote me. Any ideas on how to motivate them? Talk about something you know a lot of. Can you actually just give us a quick, for those new, the advertising background within your family? I'm sure with Skinny and everything, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, my parents owned a newspaper while I was growing up called Seniors Report, by the way. My dad to this day still sells advertising. And then my parents, they got separated, divorced, and my mom had an advertising company. My dad had an advertising company. They were effectively competing against each other. You can imagine how incredibly successful that was for their relationship, how great that was for me. But anyways, and my brother and sister, by the way. But anyway, so yeah, advertising is something I've known pretty well. I started an advertising company when I was going to college. I was taking marketing. It's amazing they let me in. But anyway, so I was going to college and I was studying marketing. I quit. What I was doing is I got a job. My marketing or my advertising teacher, I spoke to him and he's like, oh yeah, I run the newspaper. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know something about, newspapers. My parents had one growing up. He's like, well, if you're looking for a job, look, I got one for you for sure. So then he gave me a job and I was selling advertising. And one of the things I found is that every time I made the call, everybody took my call. It was Red Deer College was the name of the college. So I'd call from Red Deer College. Everybody took my call. As easy as I knew a thing or two about selling advertising because I'd done it previous to this as well. And I was like, holy smokes. And then, of course, my spidey senses go. And because I was a very natural entrepreneur and I'd already started, companies prior to that, including advertising companies, I'm like, man, I got to get an advertising company going, selling to local business owners, selling to local business owners to capture the college market. So I basically started up a coupon book that went directly, and I knew the businesses to go to, the Pasta Joint and the the place, the automotive place, fixing cars because we all had banged up cars, etc. Anyway, so I went to him and I started the coupon book, and it actually went so well that I ended up just conveniently stopped going to my classes, effectively dropped out. And the money that I was making, quite frankly, would make your eyes water. For a college kid, I was making unbelievable amounts of money. So that's how my college career came to an abrupt halt through advertising. So I could go on. It's a lot deeper than that, but I know a thing or two about selling advertising. So is that what you're talking about, Road Dog? What do you think? Is that where you wanted me to go?
Absolutely. Just wanted to, just so people know a little bit of your history, which every week there seems to be a little bit more revealed. The onion keeps getting pulled back to many, many, many layers. But anyway, so back to the main question. And so now if I'm trying to get a local, advertising, newspaper, whatever you want to call it, and also, like, say, even something as simple as an accountant. Not that accounting is simple by any stretch of the imagination. But how would you get them? Like, how would you motivate them to actually promote you?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting word they use in that question, motivate. I'm going to guess what's happening is that they're speaking to an accountant or an advertising medium, and then they kind of get it to the point where the accountant's enthusiastic and the advertising medium's enthusiastic, but that's where it stops. And all of a sudden, the phone calls stop getting returned, the emails don't get replied to, and left in a state of flux. Like, what's actually happening here? Here's the challenge. You got to go to first principles. What are first principles? Ultimately, you need to identify a problem, and then you need to solve it. Okay, so let's go to the accountant first. I don't need to sit with this accountant that I can tell you, if not the number one problem, definitely a top 3 problem in his business, and a monstrous one, and a continual one that he or she cannot get away from, is that business owners come to see them once a year. It's 3 months after the year is over, and because taxes are due, that's why they're showing up if you haven't worked that out. And you've got 6 months to do it. So now in 90 days, he's got to get these books done. And of course, this guy feels like he's the most important priority of the accountant. So, he's emailing and he's phoning, or she's emailing and phoning and expecting, rose petal type service. And the accountant's like, give me a break. You had all year to do this. Why didn't you why didn't we speak throughout the year? Why didn't you reply to me during the year? Why didn't we get some of this stuff sorted out? So what happens is, effectively, you've heard of tax season. So the accountant is so busy for 90 days that he can't keep up. Like, it's an absolute gong show, to the point where if you actually know an accountant, they'll tell you that this it's bad for their health, right? Like this wipes years off of their life. Like, it's that crazy and it's that busy for that short of a period of time and that concentrated of a time. So what's the solution? So if that's the problem, you got to ask yourself first principle, what's the solution? The solution is that these business owners need to come in, and you should be going to see your accountant 4 times a year, right? Twice at an absolute minimum, 4 times throughout the year, but throughout the year. And then why throughout the year instead of after the year is over when the taxes are due? Is that you ultimately, the number one tax, Road Dog, in your life, my life, everybody listening's life, the end is taxes, the end. But if you give me a room of 100 people and I say, what's the number one expense in your life? 80% of the hands will go up for mortgages and housing, right? That are dangerously wrong, ridiculous. So it's taxes. So if you'd like to pay a little less tax, once the year is over, the numbers are in, there's only a very small amount of quote unquote creativity that can come into it. And if you understand an accountant and his job, their job, that they can, move things around and dramatically decrease what you owe and what you have to pay in a given year, right? And in some cases it's deferred, and it's a bunch of, again, you got to understand that they can have you pay significantly less, but you need to go in and see them. And not to mention, there's some, significantly more important than that than getting all creative with your books. But there's some holes there. There's some advice that your accountant could very organically and straightforwardly give you, just by looking at things like your accounts receivable and the amount of wastage and your cost of goods sold versus your inventory and on and on. No doubt you guys know that there's some very important numbers on your financials that are just screaming out, that are jumping off the page for accountants worth his salt in any way. So therefore, you should be going to see your accountant throughout the year. When you go to see your accountant 2, 4, 10 times, 12 times throughout the year, you now start to pay them 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much. You think the accountant likes that? Yes. And the accountant can actually do the work that they actually want to be doing, right? So what does that look like? You say to the accountant, instead of going to the accountant and saying, send me everybody you've ever met, here's an email to send out to your entire database, put your reputation on the line, hope that I'm the real deal and that I'm not full of crap like all the other guys that have come and pitched you with the same thing yesterday and the day before, by the way, because the accountants get absolutely raped and pillaged. So what you've got to do is go to the accountant and say, here's what I want to do. I might be full of crap and I might be the smartest guy you met all year, okay? I don't want you to send everybody. I don't want you to promote me to everybody. I want you to take me for a test drive. Guys, take those two words, test drive. I've made millions of dollars using those two words, test and drive, because everybody's familiar with it, right? Because when you bought a car, you took it for a test drive. You did, I did, Road Dogg did, everybody did, right? So take me for a test drive, something they're familiar with and comfortable with. I don't want you to send me a bunch of clients. I want you to send me 3. That's going to be the equivalent of our test drive. And I want to show you that I'm the real deal, that I am going to perform, that I am not going to improve the businesses of the people that you introduce me to. I am going to change the lives of the people that you introduce me to for now and forever. And part of how I'm going to do that is that I know if I go to a sporting event, call it the Super Bowl, call it a football game, call it a baseball game, basketball game, a hockey game, if there's no scoreboard, I wouldn't be able to follow, and therefore I wouldn't come back a second time. Well, businesses are the same. Only difference is they don't have a scoreboard, so how could they be able to tell, in the words of Warren Buffett, the winners from the losers? And the answer is you can't. So when I work with the 3 businesses that you are going to help me with, part of changing their life and completely changing the dynamic of their business in a very, very positive way, I am going to make sure that they come in to see you throughout the year at a minimum of 4 times a year. If I have to go pick them up and drive them down here, that's exactly what I'll do. In many cases, we're going to get them, the ones with decent businesses, I would encourage that they should really be seeing you once a month, so 12 times a year. And effectively, that's what I'm going to do. So those 3, and by the way, if I could do it for the 3, I could probably do it for 30 or 300 or 3,000, depending upon how many clients you have. But take me for a test drive and let me show you. But the good news is, Mr. Accountant, you're going to start making 10 times as much money because the business owners that I'm going to be working with are going to be coming here throughout the year. And very importantly, guys, so the structure of the deal is that the accountant gets to keep his money and you get to keep your money. Because in some cases, some accountants are happy with it and some aren't. But you know what I mean? Like when they start, because what most people do, what's the alternative to the test drive? Is you go to the accountant and say, send me all these clients. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay you 20% of everything they pay me. When they start paying me, I'll start paying you. And when they stop paying me, I'm going to stop paying you, right? And then the business coach gets surprised when they don't get a reply. But the accountant, because, again, it's like buyers are liars, that expression. Like they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they don't say no, but they're just not interested, so they just ignore you, right? It's the same thing with the joint venture relationship where they're just not interested in the 20% that you're offering, right? So the bottom line is that is exactly what you do. Is you go to them and offer them a test, or so you get your money, they get theirs. They're not interested in the 20% contingency. You know what I mean? Like that. In many cases, the accountant feels like it's a conflict of interest. So actually, what you do is you just lay the boots into any future relationship because they're like, well, no, I'm not comfortable with that, right? So anyway, so that the magic there is that you go to first principles, problem solution. Again, when somebody wants to start a business, I think we talked about this maybe on the last podcast, but what people are trying to do is they're coming up with ideas, right? No, you got to change your thinking. You got to help change your high-end coaching clients' thinking. Don't let your mind run to ideas. Train your mind to go to problems, okay? And then from, the flip side of that is solving the problems. And if you find a big problem that lots of people have, you're going to make a ton of money. But anyway, so that's how you do it with the accountant, is you go to them with first principles. It's the same for the advertising medium, okay? So what is the advertising medium? You sit down, let's call it a magazine, a newspaper, an online directory, a radio station. You go to them, and now you say, or again, understand their problem. I don't need to meet them to know, and I'm sure you know this instinctively, that they get people to advertise. They advertise for 3 months. They say, it kind of works, got a couple calls, weren't any good. look, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'll call you again in 90 days when I'm ready to go again. That never happens. Goodbye. Game over. Right? So the advertising medium is in constant lead generation mode. If you understand that space, it's just sales, 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 sales. Well, recurring, again, if you follow me for any period of time, you know that repeat business equals profit. That's a tattoo you should get on your forearm, a bumper sticker you should put on the back of your car, something you really got to follow. Repeat business equals profit, okay? So the advertising medium's no different. So why don't you say this? So take me for what? A test drive, right? Those two magic words. So take me for a test drive, and then what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure the three advertisers that you bring to me, don't bring me your best, don't bring me your worst, just bring me somebody in the middle, and I will get them. I will get them to the people who I advertise. Let's say that they're spending, they're buying a $2,000 ad, over a quarter, whatever it is. It's $12,000 a quarter. I will personally work to double their ad spend with you over 12 months. And anybody that I work with, again, there are no guarantees in life, but I'm going to give you a pretty much guarantee. And if I don't follow through, don't send me any more people, but I'm going to double their advertising budget with you over the 12 months. And why? Because there's no bigger fan of advertising than me, right? Again, so a lot of people, they're like, I grew my business on word of mouth and referrals, and they pump their chest. I never spent $1 on advertising. Well, the person who said that is borderline an idiot, right? Like, advertising the profit is a superpower. That's how you throw gasoline on a business. If you really want to crush it, you got to find a way to take advertising and turn it into profit, because the word of mouth and referrals they're not going to disappear. That means that you're doing a great job. Well, you just poured gasoline on it. You're going to accelerate it, multiple fold, fourfold, fivefold, tenfold, by understanding that. So I explained to him that I am a huge fan of what he does in advertising. And in my case, I'd say that I have a background, and you guys just, whatever you say, if you have a background, then you say it. And if not, you say, I'm a huge fan of it. But no one's ever gone to the advertising medium and said anything like that. Again, it's, I'll pay you 20%. And then magically they don't call because they're not comfortable. They're not this, they're not that, they're not whatever. So bottom line, Road Dog, you want to form a joint venture with an accountant or an advertising medium or anybody else for that matter. The mistake that you're making is you're not going first principles with pretty good predictability. You're going to them with the 20% pitch, and that's just not the way to do it. And by the way, the advertising keeps their money. You keep their money. If you want to, at the advertising medium, you could offer them 10, 20%, 5%, whatever you want, and they're going to be more inclined to accept it. But again, this isn't the thing that's going to motivate them. What's going to motivate them is that first principle. In fact, here's another example. Like, you guys heard me say, if I had a business coaching, like starting a business coaching company, there's only a few things that I would need to crush it and get going. And up there in the absolute top 1 or 2 is a membership site. You've got to have a membership site. Why? Because 7 to 10 people can't afford your high-end coaching fees. So not have a downsell is just stupidity, right? Like, you need a system for the 3 and 10, would you better to have a system for the 7 and 10? The answer is both, but the 7 and 10 would make a little more sense than the 3 and 10. And that's debatable on numbers, but at the end of the day, you've got to have that membership site, because why would you want to wave goodbye to 7 to 10? Well, here's another way that I've done it super successfully, and you guys could do it super successfully. You need a membership site. But what I do, like, I have a membership site. It's $100 a month if you go buy online. But it's really worth $500 when I include my group coaching and a few other its and bits. It's really worth $500 a month, right? Well, 500 times 12 is what? That is $6,000. So I go, and again, what I'm trying to help you with is how you could go and do a joint venture. I've done it super successfully. What you could do is go to a radio station, and ultimately, what's a radio station looking for, right? First principles, they're looking for more advertisers. So I go to the radio station. I give them, let's say, 10 members or 10, like memberships on my membership site for 12 months. What are they worth? $6,000 times 10 is what? $60,000. Who's going to the radio station with $60,000 of value? The answer is next to nobody. Well, there's $60,000 of value. What I say to them is, look, run a draw on the radio that says, hey, if you're a local business owner in, name of your city, like I'm in Kelowna, right? Road Dog, we're here. So if you're looking for if you own a business in Kelowna and you're looking to take it to the next level, we are offering a free 12-month mentorship on karlbryanuniversity.com. Okay? Boom. They get 50 callers. The 7th, whatever, the 15th, the 7th caller wins. They've got 50 people that they can follow up and sell advertising to, because there's people listening to the radio station, engage with them. The 7th wins, and then they've got a bunch of potential advertisers. Well, you get the winner, right? Like the name of the person. You've got a relationship with the radio station to be able to build that test drive and really build rapport, build a relationship. Again, it's delayed gratification. Don't try to do everything in 2 minutes, right? When you go to the accountant and say, I'll give you 20%, sometimes, again, it's trying to get too much too quick. Okay, so again, I go to the radio station, give them $60,000 of value. They're advertising Karl Bryan University because that's getting spit out on the airwaves. I got $60,000 of value I just gave them. I'm building a relationship. We're back and forth. Maybe they're going to send me people straight away. Maybe it's going to take a little bit of time. It might take 6 months. But ultimately, I'm getting the winners are people that I'm giving membership to my academy, right? So I've just got 10 people that got 12-month memberships to my academy. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to go to them and upsell them other stuff. Don't do it too aggressively, by the way. But you should, over time, trying to solve their problem. Sometimes the membership site is not going to solve their problem. In fact, pretty much guaranteed that the membership site doesn't solve their problem. It might guide them towards the solution to their problem, but really accountability and whatnot is really what they need. So that's an example of how you could do it. You go to these guys, but I really want to emphasize first principles. It's a problem, and then you offer a solution. So Road Dog, that's what I'd say to that one, man. That's why these joint ventures aren't getting done. People are saying, I'll give you 20%. They're not motivated, which the word was in the question. They're not getting back to them. They're wondering why, and that is the reason. So there you go.
Wow. Come on. Like 20% because they've never heard that one before? You know what I mean? Like how often? It's so funny, right? Because no matter what business I'm speaking with, and by the way, I can't stand it when people say, oh, I only operate from word of mouth. I'm like, cool. So you leave the fate of your business in the hands of everybody else.
Everybody else. Exactly.
Right? Like it's pathetic. But the crazy part is it's like most of them, they don't even ask for referrals, right? And you mentioned once before your chamber strategy where you're actually paying them in advance. Do you want, like, while we're on the subject, do you want to just talk about that real quick and just sort of?
Okay. Give me, like, my dad, he owned an advertising company. He's also a professional gambler. Okay. Just put it in, his aggressive personality, I think could be safe to assume. Road Dog, you've met him, right? He's a real funny, charismatic guy, would be an understatement. But anyways, one of the things, like, we'll go out to dinner. And my dad, he lived in Las Vegas for a long time, like, 13, 14 years. So we go to dinner, and my dad's, let's say the entire family was there, and we don't get together that often. Well, he seeks out and he finds the waiter, puts $50 in his hand and says, see that table over there? I want red, rose petal type service if you don't mind. We only get together so often. That's my family. I love them dearly. Could you look after us? If you give the tip before, do you think you're going to get better service? Right? Pretty obvious as you think about it, right? Okay, well, the same thing. So when I go to the chamber, and then normally when I build a relationship with the chamber, instead of going to the chairman of the board, I'm going to the gals and the guy who sell the memberships, the ones in the coal face. You'll find that they're doing a lot of the grunt work. They're in front of your ideal client significantly more than the chairman of the board, quote unquote. The chairman of the board, frankly, is often in competition with you, like also a business development, business coach type. But anyway, so I just go to the chamber, the girls. I will pull them, and I say girls because it's often the best members or the best salespeople there, females. I have found that. But at the end of the day, I pull them out of there. We don't do it on site, and I build a relationship. This does need to be, we've talked about this in the past, right, Road Dog? So anybody want to see it can search it, no doubt. But I build a relationship with her or him, the guy selling membership, the gal selling memberships. I get them off site. And I just say, look, here's the scoop. This is what I do. I pay $1,000 per referral when somebody recommends somebody who buys coaching from me. Right? So I know you work at the chamber and whatnot, whatever you're comfortable with, but the relationship that I feel like we're building is, you and me, not the chamber, right? So if you recommend anybody to me, I will pay you $1,000 up front. What do you think? Are you interested? And they give it yes and a no, and you measure their buying temperature. But at this stage, I would have already established that we were pretty much red hot to trot. And they had believed, I can find anybody $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. I've got software to back it up and all that stuff. Like, you make sure you put, arguments in place to make sure they feel very, very comfortable that you're going to follow through. And what I do is I just whip out, 10 $100 bills. I slip them across the table and say, well, look, I'd like to pay you up front for the first one. And by the way, I do the same with the guy selling advertising, like pay up front for the first one. Like everybody. And okay, so as I do that and I hear you thinking to yourself, well, like, what if they don't follow through? Well, I've had that happen lots. And guess what? I got ripped off. But when I do the math, if I do that with 10 people, 3 rip me off and 7 send me clients, am I ahead or behind? And the answer is very obvious, right? Like, again, in business, it's like advertising, right? When I go and spend advertising, I spend 10 grand, what do they say? Like 8, I spend 10 grand, 8 of it's wasted. The problem is when I buy it, I don't know which 80% is wasted and which 20% is going to work, type of thing, right? Like, so, and of course you should always do your data and measure your numbers, but you get the idea. So no, I'm cool with it. Not that I'm happy with getting ripped off, but it's not that I don't follow up and I'm not trying to light money on fire. And I've also got spidey instincts for, the good people and whatnot, but I pay up front and I have no problem doing it. Some people listening to this, this sounds a little bit, mafia type or whatever. And I respectfully disagree. And I'm happy for anybody to have their opinion clearly. I don't share it with you. I like to pay people. I take great pride in paying people. I like to pay, my staff. I've had, staff for decades that are still with me, not going anywhere anytime soon. So I believe in paying people, and I like to, put smiles on people's faces. The girl or guy that works at the chamber, look, they're making $30,000 a year. If they go to 7-Eleven and buy a lottery ticket and win $1,000, they are talking about it for 6 months. They are so happy. They may be talking about it for the rest of their freaking life. Well, you put $100 bills and slip them across the table and just say, look, but I'm not doing anything here for free. Like, the people who you introduce me to, I'm going to find them $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending $1 in marketing or advertising before they engage with me, before they pay anything. So if you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable that I'm not full of poo-poo, look, this is win-win-win all day long. So yeah, Road Dog, that's what you're getting at. I have no shame and no hesitation. Again, I do it strategically and intelligently, but I pay up front, no problem.
Well, there you go. No shame. Where do I go with that, Karl? Where do I go? Hey, listen, I mentioned it earlier. You like to go down rabbit holes, and I genuinely feel horrible for the person that submitted the following question. So I apologize to you if this is your question and you've been patiently waiting for your answer, because holy smokes, Karl, a 20-minute answer, and it can't be easy to do, Karl, to provide 20 minutes of an answer for a very simple yes or no question. But anyways, that being said, if we had trumpets here, I would sound them. Do you have a process for creating culture within a business?
So this is the question that you keep bumping that you've been mentioning to me. Is this the one?
This has been like chasing me down for months.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm glad that we could finally get to it. So, how to process for creating culture. So, culture. First of all, good people, the best staff members are found, not created. Like, let's say salespeople, again, you will find them, not create them. And of course, there's anomalies in anything, but we don't deal with anomalies. We deal with percentages. So if someone is a hot salesperson selling something else, they're going to be a hot salesperson for you. And the same goes for, like, if you want to have good culture, I guess where I'm going, you want to surround yourself with platinum level people. Like I've said before, like if you show me a $25, $50 million company, I will show you a company that's it's really a recruitment business, right? So once you get to that, like Facebook is a recruitment business. Google is a recruitment business. And once you get to 25 million, that's some arbitrary number I'm throwing out, but about that point, you too will enter the recruitment business, and you need to take it very, very seriously. And no doubt that you wouldn't, but I think that it is something that's maybe not taken as seriously. Like I don't think people see themselves in that light that they become a recruitment business. I think they kind of hit and miss, and they hope to get people to fill jobs and whatnot. But that's not the right approach. You want to look at it like you want to be hiring people that are smarter than you, more talented than you, more charismatic than you. With more contacts than you. These are the types of people you want to have around you. The end. A lot of people get the reality, I think, is that instincts dictate, right? That you're a little bit, some people could be a little bit intimidated by that, and that is a horrific program. But I'll just tell you this, platinum level people love to be measured. Okay, so I had a guy, remember when I went to high school, I went to school with a guy named Cody Church. And Cody, he ended up going to Harvard, smartest guy. Like I remember he would literally argue with the teachers, right? Like the teacher would say something and he would sit there having a debate. We're like in grade 7, right? And I'm like, dude, seriously? You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure the teacher's right, but Cody would go off and the bottom line is that report card day, Cody he had a jump in his step. He'd skip into class. He was smiling all day. Nothing could bother him on that, but he could get dumped by his girlfriend and he'd still be smiling. Why? Because it's report card day. He loves to be measured. Okay. For me, report card day wasn't quite so exciting. I knew that I was about to be grounded. That's pretty much what I knew. Okay. So in school, I sucked and I didn't like to be measured. Your employees are going to be the same. If you've got the right business and the right fit, they're going to love the idea of being measured. I think when people hire people, they're looking like they think skills, they think tasks, they think experience. Like somebody's worked for somebody else in your industry, they're going to be great. Look, a psychological profile is going to be a million times more important. So somebody, my number one sales guy, he's been with me for literally years. He played professional baseball, got drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? Just somebody who is elite in something like sport is probably going to be elite with you, right? So again, psychological profile will go significantly further than the guy who worked at the other company and has some experience. That's quite frankly, a horrific way to go about it. But I'll also tell you this, culture in business. So every sport, every competition, you got MMA, you got boxing on the kind of crazy level, you got, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. They all have one thing in common. And what are they? Rules. Okay. They all got, and if they didn't have rules, and just think of, I'm thinking of the New England or the New Orleans Saints, right? Like there was I can't remember what exactly happened, but at the very end of the game, they were playing against, I'm pretty sure it was the Kansas City Chiefs. I could have messed that up. But the bottom line is, like, at the very last second, it was, like, absolutely brutal. And it was, like, literally going to the rule book. Like, if this happens, that, whatever it is, like, the rules, not only do you need to have the rules, but, I mean, these rules need to evolve over time so that you can handle any situation. What am I getting at here? An organization wants to have culture. They need to have rules. That is the missing piece. So they're going for, what did I say earlier, skills, tasks, experience, when in actuality you need to have rules and people need to engage. Like when somebody leaves a company and it's like, they either got fired or they left, it's like they didn't know, they didn't have a clear definition of what their responsibilities were. They weren't exactly, clear on what was expected of them. So that, I think, is an X factor. If you want to have culture, you need to have rules. I don't think that's something that's talked about. So if you kind of picture, the way it was taught to me is picture, skills, tasks, and experience written down, and now put a circle over top of it, okay? And now I want you to put a film, so like lighter, I want to put lines across the entire circle to cover the entire circle a little bit lighter than the letters of the skills, tasks, and experience, and that's rules. So rules is like a film over everything. And again, and if you want an example of that, you just look at any sport Whether it be chess, basketball, whatever, they need to have rules and clearly defined that go, and they also expand big time over time, right? And this also goes in your relationship. Again, relationships that go sideways, you'll find again people they weren't totally clear on one another's expectations, right? But like, let's go investing. Like right now, I'm getting a lot of questions, and I've spoken to a lot of people about, investing. Like the stock market is down, it's managed to come up, and then it's dropped again, and it's going to be for the next 12 months. Expect the bumpy road, guys. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. And then, of course, real estate. I've said this a few times recently, but I would not be investing in real estate right now. You don't invest in real estate while the stock market is capitulating. Why? And by the way, this is not black and white stuff. So you do your own homework, make your own decisions. I can tell you that I wouldn't put 5 cents into real estate right now. Why? But I will. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait 12 to 18 months. So from the bottom of the stock market, you'll find 12 to 18 months from that is where you're going to see all of a sudden a fire sale. Like you're going to see real estate come on fire, right? So that's effectively a rule, is that I would wait 12 months after. So I'm not even looking at it right now, right? Because there's a rule in place. So basically, professional investors will tell you that they have rules and rules to guide them. Like even if and by the way, amateurs go on emotion and hot tips, okay? And then professionals go on rules. I want you to think, and who do you think is going to come out? Ray Dalio, or the taxi driver that gives you the red hot tip. Who do you think is going to win in the end, right? So if you're wondering, well, what's the difference between Ray Dalio and the cab driver or my bud with the red hot tip? It's rules. And frankly, and I just think that there's all kinds of hacks that you could steal. Like take the word rules, write it on a Post-it note, put it up against your computer, and refer back to it a lot of the time. Like you're going to form a joint venture with a client. Well, have some rules. You're going to take on a new client, and you want to have a long-standing 5-year relationship. Try create some rules. I think that there's real magic in that, not often talked about. Like even buying businesses right now. Businesses are going to be on sale big time for the next, I'm going to say 3 years. Let's see, remains to be seen. And this is something you got to keep your eye on, right? Again, but what are you looking for? Like if you're a professional investor and you invest in businesses, what would be examples of some rules that you would follow? Go off the top, but like number one off the top of my head would be existing demand. Like if I'm going to buy a business, I need to know that there's demand for what it is. I want to make sure that this isn't a trend, right? I would also want to have a good management team. Like you give me a good idea or a good jockey, I go with the good jockey times a million, right? So a good management team in place, because I don't want to buy a business and then have to go run it. That sounds horrific, right? Number three, you want to have like a moat, right? Like a barrier to entry. Like right now, like I'm spending an absolute fortune, like the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars on software right now. Part of the reason, at the end of the day, I want to bring as much value to my clients and the business coaching profession as possible. No question about that. But also what I know I'm doing is that anybody wants to come and compete with me in the future, they had better have some, they're going to need to be backed big time in order to come head to head with me. Even if they take my existing software and try to reverse engineer it, which of course that kind of stuff is just going to happen. But the problem is they don't realize some of the magic that happens behind the scenes. It's just not obvious. So again, whenever they do that, you always know that they're going to come up with a significantly inferior product, and they're going to be copying what was yesterday, right? And then you continue to build. Like this is something I'll be building for 10 years. But the bottom line is barrier to entry. Things like software can be an example in my own world. That can be an example, but I want to know that they've got that. So something to stop people from entering, that would be a rule. Pain of disconnect. Again, repeat business equals what? The answer is profit. So I want to know that there's a pain of disconnect, right? It's difficult for, it's just not the easiest thing in the world for people to come and then go, come and then go, come and then go. That's a business I wouldn't be involved in. A good idea, but notice like a good idea would be distant on my list versus straight at the front. Another rule that I have would have to be minimal risk. And this is an absolute big one. So like, let's just real quick, existing demand, a good jockey / management team. What do they say there? A barrier to entry. Okay. So like software, something that's going to be expensive to copy, to enter. 4 would be pain of disconnect. 5 would be a good idea but distant, and then number 6 would be minimal risk. And then I would tell you, very importantly, are all rules the same? And the answer is absolutely not. So number 2 and number 6 are absolutely mission critical. A good jockey and minimal risk, otherwise I don't want to know about it. And maybe another rule in there, but this one's a little more gray, would be, do I have the resources to take this on, right? Time, money, people. Those are your 3 primary resources: time, money, people. Do I have that? So we'll make that an extra rule. So what would that be? Number 7, I guess. So there you go. So rules. So Road Dog, somebody's asking for culture. I would dare say, and I love the question, by the way. Should have got to this earlier, maybe, Road Dog. So we got to it today. Maybe just scraped it in, but I don't think that would be a very common answer that people would see in and around culture. But let me tell you that rules will create culture without question. The best people, you need to have good people to have a good culture, and good people want to be measured. They love it. They thrive on it. They ask for it practically. So there you go, man. That's what I would say there, bud.
I just have to, in the spirit of rules and investing and all of that, I just have to point out that this episode is being what month is it? It's the beginning of June. So if you're listening to this in, like, say, December of 2020, when Karl says 12 months from now, it might only be 6.
Yeah, well, now they're coming out pretty. I think it's the 15th, mid-June, and these things are coming out thick and fast. So, but who knows, Road Dog? Who knows when they're going to listen to it? I
say that because it's going to be like someone's going to be sitting here a year from now going, okay, he said not to put in a dime right now and to wait 12 months.
Yeah, okay. All right. Good job, Road Dog. That's why you're here, man. I love it.
The detail police, speaking of rules. Okay. That's awesome, dude. Is there kind of a final thing that you think, like, for me, the big one I think was the radio ad strategy. If you have a membership site, go out and do that, like, today. Like, go out and call your local radio stations.
Like I said, actually, tell you a story quick. So I had a flagship client back in the day. He was a business broker. And so, remember, whenever I take on a client, what do I got to do? You got to establish, like, you're skiing or you're at the national park, you look at a map and you're looking for the red arrow. You are here. So critical. Can't begin to how good advice that is, in my opinion. So basically you're looking at that, and then it's like, okay, so I got to ask him, where do you bring in your clients? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? Without a very long story, in a nutshell, the guy had 10 phone calls. 9 of the time, he's pretty much hung up the phone himself because he's not interested. Why? Because they're broke businesses just throwing a Hail Mary, people that are just kind of kicking tires. Think of like somebody driving by on a Saturday, calling the realtor, how much is that house? They're not going to buy it. They're not interested. They're just literally calling. He would get calls like that. So 9 out of 10 times he's hanging up the phone. And then I'm like, okay, so 1 out of 10 phone calls, we're not doing very well here, but 1 out of 10 phone calls goes anywhere. What percentage of those become money? And it's point like 0.005%. Like, it was just crazy, right? Like how pathetic the number was. And I'm like, hey, common sense corner, why don't we build something for the 9 in 10 instead of the fraction of the 1 in 10? And he's like, oh, and I remember, like, all the blood ran out of his face. And he goes, gee, that's not a bad idea, right? Well, again, if you're a business coach, what am I getting at? 7 of 10 people can't afford you. And right now, difficult, turbulent, economic times. And the reality is that business owners are going to be struggling a little bit for the foreseeable future. It's a 101, right? More so than before. So now you're 8.5 out of 10. You got to make sure you've got something for the 8.5 out of 10 rather than just the 1.5. What would that be? But then you've got to have network effects, right? Topic for another day. But you've got to make sure that you've got something, but you can't put them into something that costs you time, is what I mean by that, right? So a membership site, could you have 10 people on your membership site and have $1,000 people on your membership site and not change anything? And the answer is absolutely. In fact, if you got those people together and you had a forum for them to share, 1,000 members on your membership site would actually be better than 10 people on your membership site, right? So without going down that rabbit hole there, Road Dog, you're exactly right. Like, you got to have, if you're a business coach, I said it earlier and I'll say it here, you need to have a membership site for your company. Conveniently, of course, we create them for business coaches, all done for you, ready to rock and roll. But at the end of the day, you've got to have that tool. And then being able to go to the radio station and giving them $60,000 of value up front to build a relationship and get the wheel turning. That may become nothing, by the way. That's fine. But it might become a whole lot as well. So that's something that I'd be doing. See, and it also comes down, Road Dogg, to currency. See, you've got money is currency. Clearly, open up your wallet and whip out 10. There's currency. But you've also got your expertise. That's currency. Like, I can go and fix people's problems. That's a currency for me. That can, create a lot of goodwill and bring a lot of things back. My time, just taking, like, time is also a currency. Well, your member, there's a few other currencies, but it's also your membership site. See it as currency. Instead of, like you said earlier, I just give somebody $1,000 to get a joint venture relationship going. When I can go to them and give them a membership on my academy and position it as $6,000, or in your case, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 2,500, maybe it's more than 6,000, right? Great, more currency. But the bottom line is the power of that is immense. And I think that that's one lost. If I was building a business coaching from scratch, a membership site would be on my absolute must-have list. And I think a lot of people out there, my clients, some of them, by the way, don't use their membership sites to the level that they could. They're absolutely pure magic, and they've got network effects working in their favor where there's no limit to the number of people you could put in there. And the more people that come in, depending upon how you structure it, can improve the experience for the following members, which is pure magic. So there you go, Road Dogg. That's what I'd say, man.
Beauty. All right, my friend, stay safe behind your moat on top of the hill. And until we do it again, thanks everybody for tuning in to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with my boy, King Karl. And again, if you want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with an existing coach or someone you think that would make a great coach. And of course, we'd appreciate if you'd rate the episode as well. As you know, iTunes and all these other places, everything is geared and way towards reviews. So if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. And until the next time, remember, everybody, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.